Tonight, we're busting myths about autism. We'll reveal the truth about everything from the average autistic individual's ability to understand feelings and be in relationships to autism's classification as a mental illness or disability. So strap on in, because I'm going to blow the lid off this whole thing. What's going on? It's Dapper Don, and I'm excited to welcome you all back. I know I was gone for a while. I went on a little vacation, visited Kentucky for the first time. Great place, lots of trees and nice views. As expected, though, KFC is absolutely huge there. Anywho, I think it's time to get back to our regularly scheduled episodes. I missed y'all. And tonight, to celebrate my return, I'll be talking about something near and dear to my heart: autism. I happen to be on the spectrum myself, diagnosed at 13, and I know many people who are also on the spectrum. I also know that there are many myths about us that taint people's understanding of us. So tonight, I'll be destroying at least a few of those myths. Let's dive right in. The first myth is a relatively common one. A lot of people understand autism to be some kind of disability, a disease, a mental illness. And while there are those of us who are less socially graceful than others, and some that are outright rat house insane, just like with any other personality quirk, that all exists on a spectrum. And this spectrum does not necessarily go from end to end, but is rather a circle. This means that certain needs can be elevated while certain needs are lowered. For example, a person may struggle with eye contact and have a flat affectation, but excel at social interaction and understanding social cues. Another person may suck at social interaction, but excel at whatever their interest of choice is, be that drawing, writing, card games, or whatever else. This mimics how a lot of personality traits operate. If you have a high level of vanity and pride with a low level of self-awareness, you veer into the narcissistic end of things. If you have the inverse, you have low self-esteem. You can be a natural leader who is unable to take direction, whereas someone else can have that same leadership quality and be extremely gullible. But you'd hardly call a stubborn fuck or a vain prick diseased. You'd call them what they are: a stubborn fuck or a vain prick. By considering people with autism to be diseased, you're suggesting that, firstly, that it's something that can be cured, that there's something inherently wrong with people with autism and they're inherently not right. Secondly, that they're all the same, because as you know, with diseases, a lot of them, in order to be classified as diseases, have to appear in similar ways in other people. Thirdly, they don't have responsibility for their own actions and can't be judged fairly based on what they do. And fourthly, that they need to be coddled or received some kind of special treatment. And they aren't to be treated as human, they're to be treated as patients. And I'll tell you right now, I particularly hate when I reveal to people that I'm on the spectrum, people who wouldn't have known otherwise, mind you, and they start to condescend to me like I'm a weak bitch. I may not have a typical mind, but I don't understand how you think you're doing me a service by talking to me like a sick puppy. If I'm being a dumbass, just tell me I'm being a dumbass. If you don't like me, just tell me you don't like me. If I do something clever, smart, or charitable, don't attribute it to autism. Attribute it to I'm clever, smart, and charitable. I'm as much of a person as anyone else. Now, do people on the spectrum have some similarities? Sure. And do they all suffer some similar difficulties? Sure. But again, that's most personality quirks. People who always chew gum are always going to be chewing some kind of gum. Now, whether it's spearmint or trident or whatever the fuck, varies. Whether they smack or chew with their mouth closed, that sort of thing varies. but they're always going to be chewing some kind of gum. People who read books are always going to have their head in some kind of book. Now, whether or not they're reading book talk books or if they're like reading actual good fiction, it kind of varies, but they're always going to have their nose in some kind of book. This doesn't mean that they can't be judged for what they do or treated as people just because they have a quirk. But that's just common sense talking. Let's back it up with some science. This is a Hindustan Times article by Sanya Panwar. Neurologist debunks myths about autism in children, not caused by poor parenting or emotional deprivation. And where I want to draw your attention to is the part where it says, autism is not a disease to be cured. By dispelling common autism myths, we can work towards creating a more inclusive and supportive environment for people with autism. According to Dr. Samam Kathari, a pediatric neurologist, co founder and CEO, Butterfly Learnings, importantly, autism is not a disease to be cured. It's a different way of experiencing the world. Acceptance and accommodation are far more powerful than correction. When we dismantle these myths, we create space for early diagnosis, informed support, and long term success. Dr. Kotari added the conversation around autism must shift from. Sorry, a little bit of a delay here in the loading. The conversation around autism must shift from fear and stereotype to fact and inclusion. Our focus should be on amplifying neurodiverse voices and supporting parents, educators, and clinicians in identifying and nurturing the unique strengths of every child on the spectrum. Let's replace judgment with understanding and make room for every child to flourish. So, autism is not a disease. It is a different way of experiencing the world. And to back this up, we're going to go to urmcrochester.edu to once again understanding autism, what it is and what it isn't. So, what exactly is autism? It's differences in social interaction and communication, repetitive behaviors and focused interests, sensory differences including heightened sensitivity to sounds, lights, and textures, intense interest in sensory input, or both. Is it a mental illness? No, autism is not a mental illness. It is not an illness at all. Autism is a neurodevelopmental difference that primarily affects how a person thinks, perceives, and interacts with others, like a personality trait. It is important to know that some people with autism may experience co occurring mental health conditions like anxiety and depression, and that's not to say that people with autism don't have difficulties. These are separate from autism but are common within the neurodiverse community. So, again, we're not talking about something that needs to be cured. We're not talking about something that needs to or can be corrected. And we're not talking about something that needs some kind of solution for it. It is literally just a different way of experiencing the world and a different way of perceiving things. And a lot of people get messed up when they start lumping it in. Hell, I was at a place, a hospital one time, where autism was lumped in with depression and all these other types of mental illnesses. And I just couldn't help but, like, immediately the impression that left on me was, oh, so autism is bad. That's what these people are saying by lumping it in with all these other illnesses like depression and cerebral palsy and ADHD and these things that require medication and some kind of diagnosis and cure for some of them. Diabetes and stuff like that, heart issues. You're lumping autism in with that as though it's some kind of ailment, and it's not. It is literally just a different way of perceiving the world, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to accept people with autism when it's treated like this. And as you can see, when you treat autistic people like they're sick weaklings, you're actively feeding into myths and stereotypes that the scientific community has already debunked. autism is a different way of experiencing the world. I will keep saying that. Nothing more, nothing less. It's not an anomaly. It's not a disease. It's not a result of any external factors like how some mental illnesses are. This ain't Pokemon. These aren't stat reductions. But of course, this ain't the only myth that needs to be busted in regards to our friend the Tism. Let's talk about autism and relationships. There is no shortage of myths surrounding how we do in relationships, both platonic and romantic. We can't understand social cues. We lack proper empathy. We don't feel love. We don't want to or know how to be in romantic relationships. We don't understand or want physical affection, blah, blah, blah. And while some of these may be true for some of us, I want to remind you that no man was made to walk the earth alone. We feel just as, if not more deeply than a lot of neurotypicals do sometimes. And to say that we're these cold, unfeeling robots is just plain wrong and disrespectful. But I know why these myths exist. It's simple, really. A good chunk of us take a minute to warm up to people. And nowadays, people don't like to put in effort or intentionality into anything. So making us out to be stone-faced, impenetrable fortresses that don't need nobody, don't want nobody, is easier to some people than just putting in the effort to get to know us and to form a genuine connection with us. And there's actually some ridiculous crap out there when it comes to us, when it comes to autism and relationships. This is a Brainwave article that's going to kind of elucidate some of the myths about autism and relationships. Myth number 1, that autistic people don't want to be in relationships. Ah, yes, the classic. The myth that autistic people are too inward focused or emotionally distant to even think about love. Ever heard someone say that? Yeah, it's a myth, and frankly, it's lazy. Here's the thing. Autistic is not a synonym for incapable of love. The underlying problem here is the assumption that autistic individuals don't experience emotions the same way or don't have the capacity for connection. That's both cruel and inaccurate. In fact, many autistic people yearn for the kind of meaningful relationship that neurotypical people often take for granted. And I'm going to read that again. I'm going to read that again. In fact, many autistic people yearn for the kind of meaningful relationship that neurotypical people often take for granted. The romantic relationships that you guys get so annoyed with and say are the worst, and everybody's running around here talking about they're going to give up on dating, autistic people yearn for that. They crave that. That's why I go so hard on these relationship myths and really emphasize on this show how stupid they are. Because I too yearn for that connection that a lot of people take for granted. It's why so many autistic people you'll see, even if they don't appear outwardly emotional, they'll if you get them talking, talk about wanting a romantic relationship and not knowing how to go about getting one. Yeah. But anyways, back to the article. The problem? The societal structures and support systems around them don't make it easy to find or navigate these relationships. Myth number 2, something that's frankly stupid. Autistic couples lack physical affection. Cue the image of a cold, emotionless couple sitting on opposite ends of the couch. You've probably heard that autistic couples don't hug, kiss, or show affection in ways that society finds familiar. Stop right there. The idea that autistic individuals are emotionally detached is absurd. Sure, autistic people might not express affection in traditional ways, and by traditional we mean neurotypical ways that are handed down like some sort of universally accepted blueprint for intimacy. But that doesn't mean they don't crave it or don't express it. In fact, many autistic couples report a deep, unique connection, often more intense because it's unfiltered, but it doesn't fit the mold of mainstream relationship tropes. They show affection in different, often more meaningful ways. If you're an autistic person's safe person, then you'll know exactly how affectionate they are. We are not cold, unfeeling robots who are immune to the need for physical affection. Trust me, we're not. Autistic people can't communicate in relationships. Here we go with the autistic people can't communicate feelings bullshit. Another big one. Oh, they don't talk much. They say they don't understand emotions or they can't express themselves properly. Wrong, wrong, dead, wrong. Autistic people are often just as capable of deep communication as anyone else. Sure, they may struggle with certain social cues. Who doesn't? Seriously, find me a neurotypical person that understands every single social cue that comes their way, and I will find you a liar. Most neurotypicals don't even know when to shut the fuck up when they're talking for too long. And yet, autistic people get criticized for not understanding social cues all the time. That's one of the big stereotypes. Even though most neurotypicals, you have a hard time, not getting them to talk about themselves. You have a hard time not listening, not trying to be rude and telling them not to go on and 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 on about meaningless bullshit. But yet autistic people get criticized for it. Like I said, find me a neurotypical person that understands every social cue that's presented to them, and I will find you a liar. Most people are doing good with their generic bullshit. Huh? The hi, how are ya? That meaningless crap, that flat, we should really hang out and meet up and link up. And then you never hang out, meet up, or link up. Like, most people are doing good to do that. So, autistic people really shouldn't even be getting criticized with this anymore. Because ever since COVID, everybody has failed to communicate and form friendships and relationships properly. Everybody. COVID blew the mask off of all that. So, it's not just autistic people that suck at interacting anymore or communicating. But anywho, back to the article, and I'm trying to remember where I left off. The communication. It just looks different, more direct, perhaps more precise, less reliant on guesswork. Is that really so bad? In fact, autistic couples often pride themselves on this clarity. No guessing games, no emotional manipulation. Yeah, how about that? Now, again, get into a deep relationship with any autistic person and they will communicate exactly what they're feeling to you. Now, whether or not you want to accept it, whether or not you think it's justified for them to feel that way, is up to you. But there's no guessing games. Just like with me, I am completely candid in everything I do and say. What you see is what you get. If you were to be in a deep relationship with me, hint, hint, I can communicate my emotions effectively. Now, whether or not you think they're valid, whether or not you think I should be feeling them, is up to you. But I do communicate them. And now for myth number 4. Autistic couples can't have long-term relationships. Again, this is another myth that just plain doesn't make any sense. How can you assume that all autistic couples can't have long-term relationships? Here we go with assuming this all autistic people are the exact same bullcrap. The long-standing assumption is that autistic people are too inflexible or rigid to maintain a relationship for an extended period. This myth completely disregards the fact that structure and consistency, two things that often align with the neurodivergent experience, are actually huge assets when it comes to relationship longevity. When you become part of somebody's routine, you're a part of their routine. In fact, as the article goes on to say, many autistic couples thrive on routine and clearly defined expectations. The idea that a relationship has to be chaotic or spontaneous to be fulfilling is a neurotypical construct, and we're not buying it. Sometimes you can do the same thing each day and be fine. Sometimes those days that y'all take for granted where you're just sitting bored on the couch, each of you on your phone or each of you watching a movie and cuddling or whatever, those days that y'all take for granted actually hold high value to us neurodivergent individuals. So to say the notion that we can't have long-term relationships, that's more of a neurotypical thing than it is an autistic thing. Now, that's not to say neurotypicals can't have long-term relationships, but neurotypicals don't have the negative stereotypes here. You know, we've seen neurotypicals in all types of relationships. It's autistic people that get stereotyped like that. Myth number 5. Autistic people are all introverts who avoid socializing. No, because that would discount people like me, who I will talk to you whether I will talk to everybody. I'll wave to a stranger on the street. Somebody could be holding a gun to my head, and I'd still be like, hey, did you want to grab some coffee later? Because that's just who I am, and that's part of my routine. So I can already debunk that right off the bat. But let's see what the article says. Let's talk about it. The stereotype of the shy, socially withdrawn autistic person, it's pervasive, but it's also incredibly limiting. Sure, some autistic individuals may have a preference for solitude or struggle in large social settings, but this isn't a rule. Autistic people can be outgoing, they can be extroverts, just like any other group, their social needs vary wildly. The problem is the public tends to assume that because someone is autistic, they must fall into a narrow social category. Autistic couples are no exception. You might see them at a party, laughing together in their own little world, sharing jokes and enjoying each other's company, but hey, if you're only expecting them to hide in a corner, you're missing out. Autistic people can't have sexual relationships is myth number 6 here. And it kind of goes on like this, where, it says things like autistic relationships are boring, non dramatic. That's not true. There's no such thing as a relationship that's boring and doesn't have dramatic moments, doesn't have some sexual tension going on. Autistic people can't have sexual relationships. Come on. Come on. Seriously? You seriously think that there's an actual relationship out there? Or, I mean, I'm sure there is. But you seriously think that the majority of relationships between either autistics or neurotypicals are sexless, loveless affairs? How do people think relationships start? It's not just two people mashing together like action figures. You do have to have a ridiculous amount of consent and understood boundaries in order for a relationship to start. So why wouldn't they be sexual, and why wouldn't they have affection? Why wouldn't they be emotional? Why wouldn't they be deep? So, yeah, I'm going to link this article in the description so you all can check it out for yourself. Gonna move on for now, though. Yeah. So, again, it takes us a little longer to warm up to people, to feel safe around them, and it may take us a little longer to figure out the nuances of a relationship, but that does not mean that you can't be autistic and in a relationship. And the media nowadays has started to outright disagree with the narrative, which is cool. you know, uh, but there's still a long way to go before that myth is busted in a widespread sense. Especially since a lot of the media that does it still does it in a heavily flawed way, like that. What's that show? I am a surgeon. I am a surgeon. That guy. And then there's another show, that Love on the Spectrum. Yeah, for those of you who haven't heard of Love on the Spectrum, I'm actually going to go ahead and explain the premise. The show is supposed to follow young adults on the autism spectrum as they navigate the highs and lows of dating in the modern world. On the surface, this is actually a wonderful premise. You can do a lot to show that adults on the spectrum are able to get and maintain relationships just like anyone else, even with the inherent difficulties. But when you watch the show and look a little deeper into it, you run into some problems. For one, the show rarely portrays the more subtle cases like myself, and almost always opts to portray those with blatant speech impediments or sensory issues. And let's not forget the fucking baby ass lost puppy music they play over these people. Like that fucking Danny Elfman do 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 do. Yeah, that shit. Ugh. And I get it. It's TV and this is a reality show. You gotta be entertaining. As an entertainer, I understand entertaining. Especially with a lot of audiences that have short attention spans and they don't get subtlety. But even with the good intention of the show, this can still be problematic. I'm going to show you a Screen Rant article that will kind of bring to light just how problematic a lot of this shit can be. Love on the Spectrum: 10 Problematic Things About the Show According to Reddit. This is by Christian Peterson, posted on March 6th. The show infantilizes people with autism. In addition to commending the show's more flattering representations of the autistic community, Reddit user M. Paulina expressed concern that the show denies the maturity of its autistic adult stars. This Redditor mentioned that people who are not autistic often treat the primary cast members as children, with neurotypicals talking in baby voices to autistic adults. Remember that thing I said I hated earlier? This is a prime example of it. On this show, you can hear it. The people behind the camera, the way they talk. Oh, and what's your name? Oh, and what do you like to do? Oh, what's your ideal date? Huh? Oh, man. You're doing really good. Yes, go to that speed dating event. It's like you do understand that these are adults, right? Like, they're adults. They're grown ass people. Come on. Come on. This condescension is also evident by their view of the stars as being more innocent than themselves. Infantilization is a common injustice that people on the autism spectrum face, and it's unfortunate that this show allows it to the extent that it does. Hell, the very vibe of the show, like these aren't people who are trying to be in a relationship, a process that involves fucking at some point. Like literally, the very vibe of the show is very childish and very innocent. It's like that's that's not accurate to the experience of the typical autistic relationship. There is fucking involved. A penis does go into a vagina. I'm just saying. I guess I'll just have to explain. When an autistic man and an autistic woman love each other very much, y'all ain't ready. Y'all ain't ready for that. Anywho, the introductions focus too heavily on the cast members' autistic traits. A post on r/Asperger's subreddit, on the r/Asperger's subreddit by Pink Creative Fox, pointed out how the introductions of cast members on the show tend to focus on the autistic traits of the individuals more than they do on their unrelated identifiers, adding that it almost comes across a bit juvenile. Oh yeah, this person is excessively interested in dinosaurs as their autistic trait. So we're gonna zero in on that and make sure that you see them as this baby that loves dinosaurs, and the only person that they should be dating is somebody who's also obsessed with a thing. While the creators of the series may have thought that the focus on the neurodivergence of the stars maintained the theme of the show, this poster and others argue that it dehumanizes them. Treating people with autism as full individuals is a critical practice to ensure that they receive proper respect from neurotypical individuals. The stars referring to autism as a disability. We've already gone over this. Autism is a different way of experiencing the world. It is not a disability. Treating it like it's a disability, it's a myth. It's bull. You're treating it like it's something to be cured, like it's something that hampers you. And while it may make certain situations difficult, it is not a handicap. It's not a disease. It's not something to be cured. It starts to get into that whole vaccines cause autism, and there's gonna be a cure for autism, and we're gonna like, come on, come on. We're starting to lean into that bullshit. The producers over edit the show. There are many quotes, reactions, moments that are moved around to show exactly what the producers want you to see. And oftentimes it could be showing the worst of a particular, it could be showing either the worst or the highlights, and just not the full objective reality of this is a person with autism trying to navigate the dating world. No, it's not going to be the smoothest. No, it's not going to be the best. Sometimes it will be the smoothest. Sometimes it will be something that's like, oh, okay, this went pretty well. But all in all, they're not showing the truth of the matter. They're showing the cut down, edited version. And while, again, this is just TV, that's just kind of how it works, it still does a disservice to the neurodivergent community. And then it goes on to say things like the cast members come from similar families. The show intends to entertain rather than assist its stars, and it just the putting this in the format of a reality show is a little messed up. I'm going to be honest with you. It's just a little messed up. So, as you can see, even with a show like this, myths and stereotypes can be perpetuated due to neurotypicals once again infantilizing us and trying to put us all into a box. So, you may ask, what's the solution? How do we keep ourselves from mislabeling and misrepresenting autistic people? How do we keep from spreading more myths? Don't. Just don't. Get to know autistic people, actually talk to autistic people, and form an opinion yourself that's based on this is a person, I am a person, I am talking to a person. You don't need to form a whole bunch of myths and say that all autistic people are this and all autistic people are that. Because if we're going based on stereotypes, there are a lot of autistic people that you won't even be able to tell are even remotely on the spectrum. Uh, and so you'll be to assume that somebody is neurotypical and they turn out to be neurodivergent. Hell, there are points where a lot of neurotypicals, quote unquote, don't know that they're neurodivergent because they don't fall into the typical category. Because there is no typical category, because autism is a different way of experiencing the world, not a disease. So the solution is, again, talk to autistic people, look at good portrayals of autism in the media. They're there, they exist, find them. Um, and ultimately, it comes down to society needing to expand what constitutes normal so that people will be more incentivized to explore what autism really is because it'll be part of normalcy. And, they'll be incentivized also to explore what it means for those on the spectrum because it'll be part of the normal way of societies operating. Plus, this will allow more of us to unmask and show you exactly how we are. And I think you'll find that we're all quite different, even if we have some of the same-ish quirks. But now it's time for a teensy little lightning round where we react to some more myths surrounding autism. Okay. Sorry, I'm pulling up the thing I found. All right. Here we go. Autism is caused by vaccines. No, it's not. Only children are autistic. No, they're not. Autistic people have a special talent. Nope. They can be just as useless as the rest of you. Autistic people have learning disabilities. Not all the time. Autistic people are unsociable. No, we're not. Autism can be cured. No, it cannot, because it's not a disease. Only boys are autistic. No, they're not. Autism is caused by bad parenting. No, it's not. So, anywho, that's all for today's show. But if you like this episode, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. The articles referenced will be linked in the description, as well as any articles I wasn't able to get to for the sake of time, just so you can check them out. And my socials will also be linked in the description as well. Follow me everywhere so you don't miss a beat. And be sure to come right back here next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern for an all-new What's Going On with Dapper Don. You don't want to miss what I have in store. Peace out!